Las Vegas Raiders fans, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we're going to do a full draft recap, and I'm going to give you guys my grades for every one of the Raiders selections and then give you an overall grade for their performance in this year's draft at the end of the video. Make sure you stick around for that. Let's get into the video. All right, all my Raiders fans, thank you guys so much for all the support this offseason. Here are the picks if you take a look at your screen from round 1 all the way through round 7, right? A lot of picks for the Raiders. They definitely got some very, very good players in my opinion. They went Jeanty in round 1, Betch in round 2. Then they went Porter, Rogers, and Grant in round 3. Thornton Jr. and Hemingway in 4. And then in the 6th round, they had 3 picks, Pigskin, Malott, and Cam Miller. And rounding out the last pick, number 6 overall in the 7th round, Cody Lindenberg, the linebacker from Minnesota. So a very nice haul, a lot of really good players. So we're going to go through pick by pick, guys. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. All right, we're going to start off with Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. I mean, there's not a lot to say about Jeanty that hasn't been said ad nauseum. He's incredible talent. He's got great contact balance, excellent vision, breakaway speed. Not the biggest guy in the world, 5'9", around, between 208 and 212 pounds. I've kind of seen him listed at, it looks like ESPN gave him an extra inch. I think he's really around 5'8", right? Really, I mean, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. I'm a little, torn on Chip Kelly at the NFL level. So we'll have to see how he's implemented for this team led by Pete Carroll. But I think adding a number 1 running back to this roster was a must. And grabbing him at the 6th pick overall in the 1st round, I'm giving this an A grade. I mean, he's the best running back in the class. He's, a top 5 running back probably in the last decade, right? So I'm a big fan of Ashton Jeanty. I think he's going to fit well in the NFL, and I'm excited to see what he can do with Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly. The next pick, Jack Betch. Let's take a look at his PFF grade, 83 overall grade, but only 2 real years of consistent production. He was good. He's got great hands. That drop rate under 2% is extremely impressive. The only thing I'm concerned about with Jack is his ability to separate at the next level, right? He played in pretty mediocre competition, and you see him disappear in a lot of these games. He had some big games early in the season against, mediocre programs, but you don't really see him taking over games, especially late in the season, right? He does force some missed tackles, top 50 in the nation, only 1 drop all season. That's incredibly impressive stuff, right? Deep yards and deep catches, pretty mediocre. Doesn't really catch screens, kind of a middle of the field kind of guy. None of his numbers are super, super impressive, right? If you take a look at the board in round 2, so he was a 26th selection overall, right? So if we take a look in the 2nd round, the guys available after him, include Mike Green, Trey Amos, Andrew Makuba. Guys I think could have really helped the Raiders out. Darius Alexander on the D-line. Jalot from Louisville, another really good player. Darian Porter. Kyle Williams, I think, is going to be a better pro than Betch. I don't necessarily love the value that they got with some of these guys on the board. Princely Uman-Mielen, Savon Revels on the board, Jalen Knoll, a lot of really talented guys, especially at the cornerback spot. I like Betch, but is he a guy that is worthy of a second? I had a 3rd and 4th round grade on him, so I think it was a little bit of a reach there for the Raiders, and I don't necessarily love the pick, man. I just don't. I don't know why this is coming up. Arizona. Okay, there we go. Back at it. Jack Betch. Guys, I'm going to give it a C+ grade. I think there's better talent, and I definitely have concerns about the separation at the NFL level. John Spytek, the new GM, they wanted to improve the wide receiver room, obviously. It was a big need. A guy, possession receiver guy, in my opinion, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to separate. Luckily, they have guys like Brock Bowers. He's probably going to get a lot of one-on-one looks with Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, so that should help his ability to get open. I think they really like that drop rate under 2%, right? You put the ball in his hands, he's probably going to catch it, right? So I like Jack, but I do think it was a slight reach at the spot he got drafted, 26 overall in the second round. Now, let's move on to the third round where I think they did pretty good. The first pick, Darian Porter, the outside corner from Iowa State, a guy I really like. You know, he can play special teams as well, be like a really, really impressive guy there. And, you know, eventually be an outside corner. We'll see if he ends up starting, but at 6'3", 195 pounds, it's really, really impressive, especially because he's got pretty damn good speed. Yeah, I mean, with Savon Revel and Azariah Thomas still on the board when Porter got selected, it does concern me with his size and his ability to swing those hips, you know, and not get jocked out of his pants at 6'3", 195 pounds, right? He's great at 50-50 balls because of his size. You know, third fastest 40 time, 4.3. But can he put it all together with that lateral movement? We'll have to see. But Savon Revel, the injury, I think it kind of turned off the front office of the Raiders. You know, another guy, only one real good year of production. Great coverage grade. The run defense was very bad. Man coverage grade, not great either. They're going to probably be in a lot of zone looks this year, in my opinion, with that 3-4 defense. But they kind of run a hybrid defense, so we'll have to see what looks they're ultimately in the most. Pretty much played outside corner the whole time, you know. But again, he only played 400 snaps, you know. Only 203 coverage snaps. So, I mean, the guy doesn't have a ton of experience, right? So when you break down the fundamentals of who this guy is, not a lot of experience, but the passer rating against was very, very impressive. 3 picks, no interceptions allowed, but only 200 coverage snaps. Not a lot to really figure out who this guy is. And if you take a look, he didn't have one over 70 grade the last few weeks of the year. And then I think this was Arizona State. He got lit up like a Christmas tree, right? So not big time programs. And, you know, only 2 games where he graded over an 80 all year long. I probably would have went with Azariah Thomas, who went to the Jets, and Savon Revel. Probably would have went in that direction. I'm going B- grade. I think that Darian Porter has the potential to be really good. I mean, you can't, being that big at 6'3", almost 200 pounds, and to run a 4.3 is extremely, extremely impressive. He's a great zone coverage guy. You think with that speed and size, he'd be a little bit better man-to-man. So that's a little bit of disappointing in the tape. So I'm going to go B- grade, but it has A- upside potential, right? So I understand, you know, you look at this guy at 6'3", 200 pounds, you're like, this guy could potentially be something down the road. All right, now, Caleb Rogers, Texas Tech offensive tackle. You know, 6'5", 312 pounds. He's got prototypical size for a offensive tackle. But, you know, in the third round, 34 overall rank from ESPN, 122, maybe a little bit of a reach, you know, because this team needed to improve their offensive line. They ranked 17th, pretty much middle of the pack in pass block win rate, 22nd in run block win rate. So maybe they move him into guard. I think that makes the most sense. I'm going to kind of do this in tandem because they took another tackle, the very next pick, in Charles Grant, who's got great size, great arm length, 6'5", 311. I think he's a better overall prospect, in my opinion. I like Caleb Rogers, but I don't necessarily love him. I mean, if you take a look, he did play a lot better the second half of the season compared to the first half, so you do love to see that growth. And he's played all over the offensive line. Right tackle, right guard, left guard. Pretty versatile guy, but he did give up 4 sacks, which I don't necessarily love. But again, 600 plus pass block snaps. So, you know, in that opportunity, he did okay. 4 sacks and 600 pass block snaps. That's not awful by any stretch of the imagination. 70 overall grade from PFF. Okay run blocker. Everything's just kind of okay. But if you like consistency, this guy's the model of consistency, right? He gave up the same amount of sacks and hits in back-to-back seasons. And we saw a lot of improvement. He started out at left tackle. He couldn't handle it. Gave up 15 sacks 2 years ago. Not awesome. So I think he's a project. Maybe a guy in the third round. I don't necessarily love the value there. So at 34 overall in the third round, you always want to take a look at the rounds and see what guys were drafted in that same area, right? Upton Stout, another cornerback I like, Ty Felton was on the board. And then we'll move over to the fourth round just to kind of see. Baishal Tootin was on the board. Cam Scadaboo on the board. I think that's great value there for the Giants. Jack Kaiser, a guy I absolutely like. I think they could have used some off-ball help. Dante Thornton they got in the fourth round, 108. We'll talk about him in a minute. Really, really good player. The Eagles, Ty Robinson, D-tackle. They could have used that kind of guy. Pretty damn good. But offensive line-wise, Jalen Travis I do like from Ohio State. But when you look at the guards selected, you probably could have got him in the fourth or fifth round, in my opinion. So I'm going to give this a B- grade as well, because I think he's going to be more of a guard. Think of a little bit of a reach there in the third round. Here's a pick I absolutely love. Charles Grant. As an Eagles fan, don't kill me, Raiders fans, but I love Charles Grant. 6'4", 300 plus. Long arms, almost 35 inches. And he really took over football games, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games with over 80 grades. Extremely impressive. Closing in on around 400 snaps, gave up 2 sacks. Over the last 2 years, over 700 plus pass block snaps, Only gave up 3 sacks and 1 quarterback hit. In 700 plus pass block snaps, 3 sacks and 1 quarterback hit. That's pretty impressive, man. The quarterback behind him only getting touched 4 times. Very impressive. 3-year starter at left tackle. Really good pass block grade and just as good, if not better, in a run block grade situation. And the zone grade is exceptional, right? I love Charles Grant. This is an A grade. Getting him at the spot that they got him is extremely, extremely impressive, guys. Extremely impressive. Sorry about the ad popping up there. Come on, Raiders. Let's pop up. There we go. All right. So I love that pick. One of my favorite value picks in this entire draft was Charles Grant in the third round. I thought if he slipped to the fourth, the Eagles would be in on him. Excellent pick. Great job finding value with 35 overall in the third round. Now, let's move on to the fourth round. 2 selections. We're going to start with Dante Thornton Jr. True X wide receiver body type. 6'5", 214 pounds. The dude is a big boy, man. Freakish tools, 4.3 yard 40. I mean, he is as freaky as it gets, right? This kid, if he could put it all together, could be exceptionally talented and a great steal. This is the kind of picks I like in the 4th and 5th round. Guys that, if they put it all together, could be very, 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 very impressive, right? When you take a look, they didn't pass a lot at Tennessee. 6'5", 214. They had a really good running back there. So, I mean, he didn't really get a lot of opportunities, right? So, I think the tape with that great speed at 6'5" is well worth the pick. Kind of take a flyer on a guy here in the 4th round. 6 touchdowns. 6 out of his 26 receptions were for touchdowns, man. That ratio is insane, right? So he didn't get a ton of opportunity in the 13 games that he played. So you really got to, hope that the measurables can play at the next level. Because at Tennessee, didn't get a lot of opportunities, man. And it was pretty much consistent throughout his college career. I do like Dante Thornton. I think it's a good value pick, man. He's just big and he's physical, man. Not a lot of corners are going to be able to deal with the 6'5", 205 pounds, and he'll probably put on a little bit of size as time goes on. When it's all said and done, he'll probably be 6'5", 215. Absolute freaking beast mode. I like the potential. Maybe a little bit of a reach in the 4th round, so that's why I'm going to give it a B+, because you probably could get a guy like him in the 5th or 6th round, the way the rest of the board fell. Another pick I really like, the guy I scouted a lot, Tonka Hemingway. A little bit undersized at 6'3", 284, but pretty damn good player. He's very physical, right? Definitely undersized, like I mentioned before, according to ESPN. And, you could see it, 6'3", 284. Can he get off of double teams? There's no way. You know what I mean? So you got to hope that the likes of Max Crosby and some other pass rushers can develop some opportunities for Tonka Hemingway as he works into this rotation, right? But in the 4th round, pretty solid pick. Pretty consistent guy over his time in college. Pretty much a B-gap guy. Didn't really play anywhere else. Sparingly in his time. But even at that small frame, the pass rush win rate over 10% is great. But you could see he really gets washed out in the run game. So he could get after the quarterback, in that DN look, because he's not fast enough to play outside linebacker, right? So if they're in a 3-4 look, he's going to be one of those DN types, and 3rd down guy, get after the passer. He's going to be like a situational guy. 3rd and, probably plus 6 yards. So I do like his ability to get after the quarterback, but he's a non-factor in the run game at all. He's going to really struggle in the NFL to be any sort of talent in the run game. But situationally, I like the pick. I'm going to give it a B overall grade. In the 4th round, I think there was some more talent available, but we'll see. I like the pick. I don't know size-wise if he's going to be able to compete at the next level. Now, let's move on to some other guys that I think are very interesting for the Raiders. Next up, J.J. Pigs from Ole Miss, big program guy. Now, this is a D tackle, 6'3", 309 pounds. Taking him, I don't know, if I was planning on taking Pigs, I don't know if I would have drafted Tonka Hemingway. I think there was just better prospects in the 5th round than Tonka Hemingway. So it's between a B- and a B for me. But Pigs, yeah, this dude is a monster, dude. Lined up at D tackle, at edge. He can do everything. He's quick for his size. Great with his hand fighting. He's just an overall good player, man. He got some snaps at running back, 21 carries for 69 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's got some burst, some get off, man. He's got some freaking juice. Maybe on the goal line, J.J. Pigs becomes a guy, you know what I mean? That could be really fun to watch. But, you got Jeanty, so that's not going to be necessary. But he's a fun guy. I love the Ole Miss guys, especially on the defense. I love this pick. I'm going to go value-wise, skill set-wise, I'm going to go A- with J.J. Pigs. I think that's a great pick. This makes me not like the Tonka Hemingway pick even more, so that's probably more like a C+ grade for me. Here comes a very interesting selection. Tommy Mellott. He was a quarterback, running back, very similar to Julian Edelman. Moving to wide receiver, 6'2", 208. Could be a factor in the slot. Great athleticism. Could be like a Taysom Hill kind of situation there. Wanting some wildcat, give them some different looks, maybe at goal line, and maybe he develops into a slot guy like Julian Edelman did, right? Cerebral guy, obviously with the rushing yards and the passing yards. He's a dual threat in that regard. He's not going to play quarterback at the NFL level. He's going to be a special teams guy, gadget guy. Interesting pick. That's a flyer pick in the 6th round. I'm going to go B grade there. I think he could be an interesting guy as time goes on. But I do like the quarterback selection they made from North Dakota State. I think Carson Wentz was another guy from North Dakota State. So they have had a history of developing NFL-ready quarterbacks. 45-11 in his college career. Gets rid of the ball pretty quick. Good arm talent as well. And, back-to-back 90 grades. adjusted completion percentage, top 15 in the nation. He's a top 25 guy in the nation in pretty much every category, right? Deep yards is really good. He's just a talented guy. 3,200 yards for North Dakota State, 33 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, 127 rate. I love that accuracy. That's a great ratio, 33-4. Again, not playing great programs, right? So we don't know how it's going to translate to the NFL level. But 6'1", 212, a little smidge undersized, right? I like my quarterbacks in that 6'3 to 6'5 range, but at selection 217 overall, taking a flyer on a guy like Cam Miller with that type of accuracy, I like it, man. I really like it. And the 71 grade against pressure is very impressive, guys. Most of these quarterbacks, especially in this draft class, their pressure grades are like below 50, right? So Cam Miller could be a steal. I like this pick. A grade for me. At 217 overall, that's a pretty impressive pick there, guys. And Cam Miller's a guy not a lot of teams were talking about, in this draft coverage scenario. And then Cody Lindenberg. They needed an off-ball linebacker. I wish they would have went a little bit earlier, maybe in the 6th round, like where Pigs was selected. I would have liked to go linebacker a little bit early or get a little bit more value. There were some guys on the board that I really liked in the 6th round. So, Cody Lindenberg, he's just okay. 7th round pick, 6'3", 240. Bigger size for an off-ball linebacker. Excellent against the run. Missed tackle rate, 13%. I don't love that. He's a pretty mediocre guy. You look at all the metrics, in the box linebacker, okay pick. I'm going to go C+ grade because I wish they would have went linebacker a little bit earlier. Okay, so overall draft class for the Raiders, I give it a B+. I think there were some spots where they hit, but there were some spots where they reached. If you gave them a B grade, I wouldn't be mad at you. But I think there's some upside with some of these guys. That's where I'm like, maybe, they're drafting guys like Darian Porter could have some serious upside, 4.3 speed. Interesting guy. I love Charles Grant. I love that pick. Dante Thornton. This is a big guys beat up little guys draft for the Raiders. 6'5", 205. Another very physically imposing guy, right? J.J. Pigs, I think, could have some upside, as well as Cam Miller. So I'm going B+. Overall grade for the Raiders. Raiders fans, let me know in the comments below. What picks did you like? What picks do you think were reaches? And if any picks you disagree with me about my analysis, let me know in the comments below. I would love to know. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.